Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears. Our guest today is Angie Sullivan. She is the founder and principal of CEG Results, LLC. Angie, welcome to Leader.
Thank you, Susan. Really excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you. Angie, I've pretty much known most of my life, and it was a joy to get to know her in a professional capacity because we do know each other through our families, and we are sort of related, like a couple of cousins apart or something like that. I never remember. What are we, second, third, fifth?
I know
we're not first.
Our dads were first cousins, so whatever that makes us after that.
Yeah, so I think that makes us seconds. Yeah, we're seconds and so forth. So now let me tell you a little bit about her background before we start drilling her about her journey. I'm saying all that so you get nice and relaxed about being here.
I appreciate it.
Yes, I know.
This is a little bit out of my bailiwick. So
yeah. I'm so glad you're here. So what she does today, and she's going to tell you a little more about it, but with CEG Results, she partners with nonprofits to strengthen their internal capacity, enhance grant readiness, and implement effective program evaluations and strategic planning efforts. She does this after bringing a background of working with several nonprofits and grants throughout the region. That included work as the executive director of the Spotsylvania Education Foundation. She was grants manager at Empower House, which these are just great organizations, and a program manager at Smart Beginnings, Rappahannock area. In all of those roles, she worked closely with not only with things like program management, but with grants management and funding and engagement. So those are really critical roles for nonprofits. So I look forward to hearing a little bit more about that. And she's also been super involved in our community, and that's really what drives her in here today on the Leader to Leader podcast, because she is a graduate, again, of Leadership Fredericksburg, like so many others that we've had on the program. Class of 2018, and she has served as a mentor since then with Leadership Fredericksburg. She is a member of the Satellite Club of Rappahannock Rotary Club, so we are colleagues in that. She's supported Gwyneth's Gift Foundation, and she has served as chair on the Chamber's CNU, Chamber Network of Enterprising Women's Committee. She's done more than those things, but that's just what I have on this list in front of me. Does it make you exhausted to hear all that? It's just been great, right?
It has. It does, to look back and think about all of those things and my journey. Just coming here today was a great opportunity to sort of reflect.
Yeah, and reflection is such an important part of leadership, right? Because it just keeps you grounded to go, how can I keep moving forward? And then you see how far you've come.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of that. Your leadership, professional, however you want to frame it. Tell us a little bit more about your journey and the person behind some of the things I just shared with our listeners.
Well, thinking back, my younger self probably wouldn't even describe me as a leader. My younger self would have thought, okay, it's a position you reach or directly managing people. And it really took me probably till I was applying for Leadership Fredericksburg almost 8 years ago to think about leadership in a different perspective. So thinking about that, I think my leadership journey started way back probably in high school.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When I was a gymnastics coach. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So probably in actually middle and high school, I coached gymnastics, had an experience as a senior to help kind of be a junior coach to a new team. My senior year was the year Chancellor High School opened, so all my teammates went to a different school. And so I'd really thought about not actually doing gymnastics that final year. And it was a former teacher who stepped back in to coach, Gail McGee, that sort of came to me and encouraged me to understood my perspective, but didn't pressure to actually compete, but kind of come on, help this young set of gymnasts coming up to help set up the equipment, help choose the leotard. And then I found myself, I ended up competing, which I'm thankful that I did, but it was more about the team and making an impact and a difference and encouraging them to do the best they could while competing. So I think it really does go back that far. Mm-hmm. And it probably influences my leadership style now, because I think it's very coaching and supportive and encouraging others. So I went to Virginia Tech and then graduate school. And while in graduate school, I became a co-op at the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Dahlgren Division, as a personnel management specialist. So once I graduated graduate school, went and worked with the Department of Navy. And as a personnel management specialist, you work with other leaders across the different departments to help them with their personnel managers and staff managers. From a very early role in my career, I was actually kind of on that outside, not leading people directly, but providing support and guidance to people in leadership positions. And so from there, I had a couple of different positions. My final position with federal government was a training manager for one of the divisions. And so it was developing a training database. And again, it was a new position, so I had to grow that position. And then I was fortunate to step outside of the workforce for a period of time when my kids were little, and came back. During that time, I volunteered a lot. Actually, that's kind of where my grant role came in. And then stepped back in, put my daughter on the school bus for the first time, and went to work as the program manager for Smart Beginnings Rappahannock area, all on the same day.
Oh, wow. Well, I bet that was quite a day.
It was.
That's a lot all at one time.
I remember. But in the same sense, it was exciting. Smart Beginnings actually grew out of the Success by Six program with Rappahannock United Way. So I was working directly with Rappahannock United Way.
I remember all of that.
Yeah.
So well.
And so in that position, I had to pull together a board, led an advisor committee and a couple of different teams, and really learned a lot about the nonprofit experience and managing grants and managing a coalition,
right?
Instead of just one direct program. And from there, I decided I wanted to learn about other nonprofit missions. So I did enter the consulting world at that time for a bit. Actually ended up as a consultant with the Virginia Early Childhood Foundation. So I was on the other side, the funder side, and helping provide some guidance to other coalitions in the Northern Virginia area. And from there, I actually worked for a consultant focused around evaluation and measurement. So I worked a lot with a number of different nonprofits, mostly in the Richmond area, but learned more outside of that early childhood realm around housing and a couple of other, different missions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you had Empower House in there also, and that was a little different, right?
And that was different. So once, I had that experience as a consultant and learned a lot about different other missions and seeing inside organizations, I found that, although you can share and provide guidance, you're never necessarily there to see the end outcome. Mm-hmm. So I decided there was an opportunity again with Empower House to become their first grants manager. So
wow.
One thing that I think has kind of a theme that's gone across my work experiences is that I've started a lot of positions or grew a lot of positions. Mm-hmm. And so with them, I worked for them for 3 years, helped develop a lot of tools and systems, great organization. I still work with them and support them today. But after about 3 years, I knew I always wanted to go back into consulting. And so there were 2 areas I wanted some more experience in. One being more in that leadership role, such as an executive director. That's true, what I used to think of as the leadership role. And 2, back in the foundation, so where I was providing grants. And I've always believed, put it out there in the universe, just say it out loud. And an opportunity came up to be the first executive director for the Spotsylvania Education Foundation. And that kind of fulfilled both of those buckets. Mm-hmm. So of course, I started that right before COVID hit. I think my first day was late December of 2019. So things were very different, very challenging. But growing up in the Spotsylvania school systems, my kids had graduated from Spotsylvania schools. Very grateful. I think I was there at the right time in the right place to help make an impact and support teachers and students during that time.
Yeah, I've talked to so many people who had job or transitions right around that time. And if you weren't in a transition, like I remember 2019, it's like the heady days. That was one of the best years ever if you were out here in the business community and so forth. Everything was just booming. And it was really a great time. So it was a great time for you to be making that kind of decision, And then in your case, 3 to 4 months, the world didn't look the same.
No.
And so to come through that and now go out on your own is still continuing that strong, resilient journey that has been yours. And everything you're talking about has been leadership all the way throughout. You just weren't quite embracing that part. You were doing, right?
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, doing and leading. Yeah. So it sounds like you may be a servant leader. When we think of your style, what do you think?
I guess I would kind of characterize this as an authentic leader. So
Yes,
I try
ma'am.
to be really genuine.
Yes.
I want what's best for the organization and the people that are working with it. I bring a real sense of self-awareness, so I know my strengths and I know my limitations. So I'm always pulling together people and trying to share their perspective and really use their perspective as we guide and go through whatever we're working on and leading to.
That's a good skill to have, to say, okay, I see this task ahead and I have a gap here or there. Let me pull in somebody, right? Have you always done that?
I think I've always done that. And I've always, I balance that when I say authentic also with that coaching perspective, because I also feel like I provide a lot of support and guidance so others can rise up and shine. So I'm really, I really try to lift others up. And I always, have to keep telling myself to try to stretch myself a little bit. I think even coming here today, I feel like I'm stretching myself a little bit just to share my story or to be recorded. But yeah, I think really encouraging others to stretch themselves. I tell my kids and the people that I work with to dream big,
And doesn't it feel good when you follow their journey and you see their successes?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So to just tell you a little bit about the work that I
Sure.
do today.
Yes.
One of the reasons that I, chose to do CEG results or open it up, it was truly one of the COVID moments, like when I had COVID and I was thinking to myself, I knew I always wanted to go back to consulting. And I always thought, I'll do it when I'm ready, or I'll do it into retirement. I had a lot of, individuals, former colleagues, people that I worked with around that 2021, 22 period that sort of reached out and said, hey, do you know anybody that can help with grant writing or board development or strategic planning? And those are the things of, hey, I could help, but, I'm really committed to what I'm doing right now. And there was just this thought, there's kind of alignment of the stars of things happening. My daughter graduating college and just feeling like, okay, I had the room and the space to try to do this and go out on my own. So I chose to do that and started CEG Results. And of course, there's a lot of things. I've got a lot of experience in the nonprofit world. So then I'm not, I wasn't sure exactly what area, and still, I look at today, what area, what direction do I want to go into? But I think I've sort of landed on focusing on strategic planning, and then I want to build internal capacities for nonprofits. So I've been a successful grant writer. People often see and come to me around grant writing, but I don't want to be an organization's long-term grant writer. I want to build their own capacity. So what I do is come in and just help them understand, develop, master grant language, help them become more competitive in what they do, and probably work on a couple of grants along that way with them, but want to build up their own internal capacity. So that's an approach I take, where some grant writers, I think, come in and just want to be an external contractor grant writer. But I'm all, again, about building up one's internal capacity.
Well, that's a unique and great business model that you're talking about. Tell me, what does CEG results? Tell me about the name.
So CEG results actually came out of Leadership Fredericksburg.
Oh,
I think it was.
I didn't know this.
Yes, it was one of our early on exercises, and I can't remember whether it was around your language or your motto. But CEG stands for Clarity, Energy, and Growth.
Okay.
So
I like it.
So it's bringing clarity, energy, and growth to strengthen organizational results. Hence CEG results.
I'm writing this down. Clarity, energy, and growth.
Yes. And so I think it started, as a personal kind of focus and mantra, but it's something that that I really wanted to share with the community at large.
Well, what a gift that you have, and being able to work with so many organizations and people to help them strengthen and make their organizations more sustainable. It's excellent. Has there been an individual or more than one along the way that really inspired you and maybe mentored you or helped you along your way in this journey?
Well, I come from a background of very strong women and leaders, I think, in their own right. One I'll just bring up and personally mention my grandmother, Barbara Self. She was actually the first woman, one of the first women officers at the National Bank of Fredericksburg.
Oh,
and went back to school. So she was a lifelong learner. I truly believe in lifelong learning, and ended up retiring as vice president of one of the vice presidents of the National Bank of Fredericksburg.
That's super cool.
So just having her as a role model, throughout my life, really inspired me. And then, I go back to, as I mentioned, the one coach that stepped up when I was a senior. I think it really did guide kind of my leadership style today. Again, gaining perspective, understanding my role, and bringing me in and encouraging me to share my time and talents with others and make that difference. So I'd say those two are, the first two that come to mind as I talk about it. And I've certainly, worked with and had leaders throughout my career, that there's, some key individuals that I think supported and believed in me along the way, which is why I value my time when I'm mentoring with Leadership Fredericksburg. I also feel like through that mentoring and leadership that I get just as much out of it, or maybe even more sometimes than the mentor.
Yeah, that's such
I'm
a great thing.
Working with. So, but it's great to be able to experience that.
Well, watch your email, because I'll be sending out that notice very shortly for mentors for the next class. We just graduated. Can you believe it? Our 18th class.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And
it's something.
It is. And what you've done with that and developed, I think, I do credit also my, more confidence in moving from my executive role back into the consulting world, also with some of the connections that I made with Leadership Fredericksburg. Just really opened up. I mean, as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we've been in the Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania area. We grew up here.
Yes.
Couldn't go many places without someone knowing, who your parents were or who you were. I experienced that
Absolutely.
well in this area. So it was really exciting to meet people sort of that weren't in my circle or my network, and opening that up, learning about the work they do, their missions. It just really, I think, helped me feel more confident in going into that consulting world.
Yeah, because when you're in a new leadership Fredericksburg class, you're with about 30 other people, and it's just a whole mixed bag of people at different levels of leadership. Some are in their 20s even and up into their 60s. And so you've got really seasoned leaders. You've got people who've had multiple jobs, or people that are leading, if somebody in their 20s might be in their first job, but they've been leading in the community. There's different levels that make them get in there. And so it's kind of like you getting out there with this test group, like the real world.
Right.
That's how it is out there. And you're kind of like a bumper car going out in the world. It makes you able to really learn how to connect with those different personality types and so forth. So I think that's great, and that you definitely blossom through that experience. Yeah. So thank you for being part of it and carrying the torch into the next classes and so forth, and in our community with everything that you do. Yeah. What when you get into like working with a new client now, when do you know, like, what is the measure that feels like this one's really working? This is successful for me. This is a good one.
I talk to a lot of nonprofits, and I'm very, transparent in being able to share. So when I talk to a lot initially, connect with, usually it's executive to leaders, sometimes it's board members. But for me, it's really understanding that mission and being, in many different nonprofit roles, in leadership, program manager roles. A lot of what I do focuses on things that aren't directly service provider work. So it's really helping them understand to kind of step back and take the time and commitment to kind of looking at your organizational health as a whole, and preparing and making sure, you really have the language and understand your impact. A lot of what I do is help organizations share their story with stakeholders, share how they impact, and some of that goes back to, evaluation, measurement, and collecting things. So I know that it clicks when I've got an organization that, is able to express that with their board and has that commitment to take the time and invest some money in
Right.
Their internal capacity and build that up.
Yeah, that investment is so important in that buy-in. Mm-hmm. And what would you consider like a more the less great day, a difficult day, or something like that? Like what's challenging? Sometimes for me, it's I can't get to everything, or the calendar. I messed up my calendar, or I didn't do my best. I could have prepared more for a speech, or some piece of it. There's a bunch of different ways that can make me feel like that day wasn't quite as good. And they usually are decisions around or lack of decisions around communications that make things kind of not go as smoothly. It might be something different for you.
Yeah, I think one of the things, that I've learned, over the course of working with so many different organizations is that what's a priority for me isn't always a priority for the individual I'm working with, I'm leading, I'm supporting.
Yes.
So I think kind of, makes me think of, empathy, understanding what others' perspectives are,
Yes.
and what their needs are.
Yes.
And being able to provide, grace in what they're doing and trying to get and challenging. So part of the challenge for me, though, is to keeping an organization I'm working with on track and balancing that. As a consultant, we sort of our days are always different.
Yes.
But we also, hold time for certain tasks or activities that we think are coming in. So a lot of work relies on others getting that to it. So some of the biggest challenges are just being able to balance that
Yes.
and keeping an organization sort of on track, which is why that communication and that expectations and all of that is so important. But at the same time, balancing grace. That there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on in the nonprofit world right now.
Yes, that's true. And your comment about priorities and understanding them is so important. I think maybe in those input meetings we ask those questions, but to remember, you just reminded me to come back to it at the front end of a meeting when you're supporting others, especially to say, making sure that we have the same objective here.
Exactly.
Because you could go through a whole meeting and not catch it till the 45 minutes in or something, that you're marching this way and they're kind of marching that way. And now you got to go backwards, and you're both trying to get to the same place, but they had something else in mind. So
right.
that
It's so
goes to
important.
your term of clarity
Exactly.
as well, and how it all pulls together. I love it. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll just say that the one thing I do with all my organizations, and this is kind of where the clarity comes in, as I do a clarity profile. So it's really where
nice.
is your organization at this point in time? And it looks at organizational health. Of course, it's with a grant funder perspective. So
Yes.
working in that funder world, it's something that I do offer my clients. So I will walk them through, okay, here's, the things to think about for the grant. Once it gets written, then I put that funder hat on. And so this is what I'm thinking, clarity-wise. But I do like to start every organization out with a clarity profile where I'm actually really diving into their organizational documents, looking at all different things so that when their next steps, whether it's strategic planning, and where we're working with me, our grant writing, or if there's some areas that come up that, I have a network of consultants that I can share with them to sort of help improve where they're going. So they leave, that ends with a clear report that an organization's executive director, their board, I provide, resources for them that they can move forward on their own. And then we talk about what things I can do to help them, as well as share or point them in the right direction for other resources.
Excellent. Well, I love hearing about all of this. It's just been great catching up with you and learning more about what you do as a leader and the founder and principal of CEG Results. Clarity, energy, and growth results. Love it. As we start to wind down, I wanted to ask if you had a favorite quote that you could share with us.
Well, I think the one I always come back to is everything happens for a reason.
Oh.
So I'm definitely a glasses half full, optimistic person. When one challenge arises, there's usually, something good that comes out of it. The other thing I think I've already mentioned is that to put it out in the universe. If there's something that, you're thinking about, I'm, where I am right now, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I still, put things out there and thoughts out there to think about, what opportunities and what direction to go in. And I think lastly, as new opportunities arise, or new adventures is what I call it.
Yeah.
To always keep the door open from where you've come from or where you've been. Never close any doors. Always keep those doors open.
Keep the doors open. Mm-hmm. Love it. Anything else you'd want to share with our listeners?
I think as hearing my story, there's no one right path to your career or leadership journey. Trust your gut. Never stop learning, and always keep pursuing new opportunities or new adventures. That's what I would think I would share.
All right. Well, that's a lot of good stuff for our listeners today. Now, this wasn't as bad as you thought it might be, right? We had fun.
We did. Thank you for making me feel very comfortable.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll have you back, and we'll talk about some of this, and then maybe some fun stuff too. I don't know what we'll get there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, thank you for being with us today. Again, our guest was Angie Sullivan, the founder and principal of CEG's Results, right here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area, which if you look on the map, it's about an hour south of Washington, D.C. for our listeners from all over the world. Now, that's if there's no traffic, so we'll just give you that hint in advance. Again, I'm Susan Spears, and our guest today is, excuse me, Angie Sullivan. Please go ahead and like and follow us if you haven't already, so you can learn about more of the great leaders in the Chamber of Commerce in the Fredericksburg region. Thank you. See you next time.